Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. I will never understand why anyone cares or thinks they deserve a say in what goes on somebody else's property. Lunatics. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Neighbor's complaint to the city backfires. We have a next-door neighbor who doesn't like us, for no apparent reason. This is a vacation home for them, and we've never said a single word to or interacted with them ever. They seem to think we live in an HOA, which we don't, and call the city code enforcement on us over their perceived shortcoming in our lifestyle. We let our yard pretty much grow wild, whereas theirs is meticulously landscaped and professionally tended. We have 6-foot walls between houses, so they can't see much of anything in our yard without trying, such as climbing a ladder to take pictures to send the city to lodge a complaint. The city investigates, finds nothing wrong, and closes the complaint. The last complaint happened a few months ago when we were doing some legally permitted construction. The neighbor calls the city, they come out and find no issues. Apparently he was upset with this outcome, and he made more complaints, of which only one was valid. He complained about our vehicle parked on the street not having a current registration sticker. Parking enforcement came out and put a sticker telling me to fix the problem or move it within 3 days. Apparently, my current license plate sticker had been scraped off. While out front, I noticed my neighbor's new motorhome parked in front of his house. It's illegal in this city to park a motorhome on the street. Normally, I couldn't care less about it, but this seemed like an opportunity I couldn't pass up. I asked the parking guy, "What about that thing?" He said there was no complaint about it. So I said, "I'm complaining." I watched as he took pictures and wrote out the parking ticket/tow order. I then watched as, about an hour later, the tow truck eagerly hooked it up and whisked it away to their impound lot. If you towed them once, you'd tow them again. Hopefully they learned their lesson. And our second story. No flexibility in switching hours? That goes both ways. I was working for a large hotel chain at the time, working 3 day shifts at the front desk a week and 2 night shifts a week to get my full-time hours. Previously, I'd only been working days, but our property had struggled to keep a consistent part-time overnight employee since I started working there. So initially, I stepped into that role to help out, but then just kind of stuck with it. You do get paid $1 more per hour to work overnight, and generally the nights were pretty quiet. So after about a year serving in that role, I started really feuding with my general manager. We didn't see eye to eye, but that's another story. In the end, I told her I was through working the overnight shifts and that she'd better start looking for a replacement, knowing it'd be a pain to fill that slot. She told me that's fine, but that she wouldn't need anyone else during the days full-time, so I'd be relegated to part-time hours. After thinking it over, I couldn't lose my benefits, so I conceded. Now, it just so happens that we were understaffed at the front desk. Not only that, but we were approaching a busy time of year, and I was the most senior front desk associate and also just generally most comfortable with the computer system. So being a busy time, management wanted to put me on all-day shifts to handle the crowds of people we'd see during the day compared to overnight, which, like I mentioned before, were usually pretty quiet. So without speaking to me, they worked out that one of our still pretty inexperienced employees would get my 2 overnights a week, and I'd switch to all days temporarily, and thus would not get my extra pay from working overnights. That overnight rate would go to the less experienced employee whose shifts I'm supposed to cover. So I went to my GM and told her my understanding from our previous conversation was that I am not full-time day shifts, as that offer was off the table, and that I required 2 night shifts per week per our employment agreement. Financially, I couldn't support anything less as well, since I budget my expenses based on what I'm supposed to be paid. More or less BS, but who's she to say otherwise? I told her I'd be happy to cover those day shifts, but I'd need to be paid my overnight rate. Well, she wasn't having it. So she ended up speaking with a colleague about it who agreed with my logic over hers and suggested offering me a $100 Visa gift card to placate the situation. So I accepted, but was very clear that this was not an indefinite scenario and that the following week I would require my 2 overnights. Or I thought I was clear. Well, lo and behold, the GM ignores that and schedules me all day shifts again, so again I tell her that's not what we'd agreed and I couldn't work those shifts. I offered to give the gift card back if it was supposed to be some payday advance. I'd rather earn my agreed-upon weekly rate than accept this strings-attached gift card offer, and I followed it up by offering to take 2 days off as vacation time to ensure I'm earning my expected weekly wage that week. Again, she was not having it, and a fight ensued. She ended up going to our regional manager, her boss, about it this time, who, to my surprise, also agreed with me. He told her to pay me my overnight rate and be done with it. Now it gets better, and I didn't find this out right away because I wasn't even paying attention. Our finance ladies in the corporate office are sticklers, to the point where if I did not work the overnight shift, they would not be okay fudging the books to pay me my overnight rate. So the regional manager upped my entire hourly pay rate to my overnight rate, giving me $1 raise on day shifts, all because I was a major pain in the butt to my GM and refused to work with her. Sometimes being a jerk pays off. Look, this isn't being a jerk. This is holding to your integrity and not backing down to a manager's hope that their employees are too naive to figure it out. Good on you for sticking to your guns. And our next story. How one lady slowly destroys everything decent about my job. I work at a big box retail store. This is how evil lady took away everything that made retail tolerable. When I started this job, I was pleasantly surprised with how things were done at this store. We could wear sneakers instead of dress shoes as long as they weren't too flashy. Basically a blessing for those who have to walk around on store tiles for 8 hours. We had stools at the registers we could sit on between customers. Later at night, when business was painfully slow, we could have a book with us at the register to read when we weren't assisting customers. It was everything I could have ever wanted from a retail job. All these things were not a company-wide policy. This state of existence lasted for my first 6 months with no issue until one day she came. This lady's middle-aged, she's quite large. It's to the point where she can't really find clothes in our store regardless of our expansive plus-size section. Evil lady started coming into the store at least every third day. She waddled back to the plus-size section, looked around a bit, then waddled back up to the front where she would complain to our cashier that none of our clothes fit her. Whoever was on the register would give her the line about looking on our website for extra sizes. Evil lady would huff and waddle out. She did this for about 2 weeks without incident. Sometimes she would buy clearance socks or jewelry. One day I'm folding shirts with a coworker and we see her waddling right at us. She started berating us about our sneakers and how ugly and unprofessional they were, asks to see a manager so she can address this issue. Manager says he'll look into it. She huffs and waddles out. The next day we get a call from higher-ups in the company telling us a customer has complained on their Facebook wall about employees not following rules. We go on Facebook and, surely enough, there's evil lady with a long rant about how only lazy people should wear sneakers. Now our shoes have to be business casual. Over a month later, she strikes again. She comes in late at night, waddles back to our plus-size section to see if we magically receive size 5X clothes overnight, then picks up a pair of clearance socks and makes her way to the register. Cashier had a book in hand but set it down while evil lady was still 15 feet away. EL starts going on and on about how it must be nice to be reading a book instead of working. Later on Facebook, we'd all become accustomed to watching out for her rants, she starts complaining about how a cashier made her stand for 5 minutes while she finished her chapter instead of doing her job. Next day, management calls, books and homework privileges are gone. Another month before the next big incident, not enough room to mention the small ones, she comes in, does her whole routine, then she walks by me at the register where I'm sitting on a stool. I stand up to talk to her, and she goes on how it must be nice getting to sit and how it wasn't fair that workers got to sit while customers had to stand. I told her we had chairs by the front doors, but she wasn't having it. She tells me to enjoy my stool while I still have it. 2 days later, we have no stools. It's been pretty uneventful lately, until last night where my manager gave one of our old stools to one of our very pregnant cashiers. Evil lady comes in and sees someone sitting and demands to see a manager. She starts yelling about how unfair it was. Manager, finally, after months of letting her walk all over us, tells her no. She storms out yelling about how we've lost her business. I don't know how we'll survive without the sales of clearance socks. I don't know if we'll get any of our old privileges back, but luckily I have a job set up for after graduation and I'll finally be out of the retail hellhole. Such a spiteful soul. Must have salt water for blood and spoiled milk for bile. How can someone be so bent out of shape about stuff in a store that they systematically destroy the little nice aspects of working there? And our last story. Karen tried to run over the security patrol guy. We live in a private townhome community that backs up to a high school. Although we're not gated, there are signs at both entrances stating that it's private property, no street parking, etc. Entitled parents think they can swing in one entrance, drop off and pick up their kids, then leave out the other entrance. We took to having our security patrol block off both entrances before and after school. Parents went nuts and called the police multiple times to complain about not having access to public roads, only to be shut down by the PD. Needless to say, we get a lot of hate from some parents. Once a mom was able to get into the community before the patrol service blocked off the driveway. She was told she needed to leave as she was both trespassing and blocking a fire lane. Just gonna be a minute, not hurting anything. Public street. She gave all the usual excuses. So the patrol officer called the PD to have her ticketed for trespassing and blocking a fire lane. When the police officer arrived and approached her car to get her information, she tried to run over the security patrol guy. Needless to say, it didn't end well for her, but at least we didn't have problems with entitled people for quite a few months after that. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.